Alrighty. Well, hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium here live on YouTube. My name is Patrick. I work at the aquarium here in social media, and we are live at the moment here at one of probably the exhibits you may have missed here on your trip, or certainly looking at some animals that you may have missed out there on your dive if you were off of the Channel Islands in Southern California. And hello to anyone who's live right now here with us. Thanks so much for joining us, and hello to anyone joining us here on the replay. So we are looking here at the backside of a blue-banded goby. Oh, there you go. Thanks so much for turning around right there on cue. These are well-trained live stream gobies. So we have here this blue-banded goby. You would think that you wouldn't be able to miss this fish out there in the wild with that ruby red body, those electric blue stripes going down their back, but these are rather elusive animals actually down off of Southern California, the Channel Islands. You have to look underneath rock overhangs. You have to check the spines of sea urchins. These animals will sit right there perfectly motionless, and you won't really get to see them unless they dart about or move, or you got a light and you know what you're looking for. These are beautiful, beautiful fish that are really hallmarks of a Southern California dive. If you're in the Channel Islands, you're going to want to find these blue-banded gobies. These fish are not really found much further north than Morro Bay, but you will sometimes find them up here in the Monterey Bay. I've actually seen one myself out here during the blob and El Nino conditions, where we had much warmer water than we usually do here in the Monterey Bay, and we did have blue-banded gobies showing up here and settling off of the wharf and the breakwater wall here in Monterey. So, oh, we had a little yawn right there. Nicely done. Thanks so much. So this blue-banded goby, and decided to take off right there, a little bit self-conscious of yawning there on live stream. We've all had our coffee here, making sure that we are alive and ready here, awake, ready to go on the live stream. But this beautiful fish here, you sometimes see them in the Monterey Bay, again, much more further south. And if you're seeing a blue-banded goby, there's a good chance that if you pan up and look around yourself, you will see these beautiful Gorgonians here. Gorgonians are a colony of animal related to anemones and coral and jellies. They're a stinging animal, which it puts them in the family Cnidarians, which means nettle animal, I believe, or nettle being, or nettle havers, or stinging creatures. And these Cnidarians here, these Gorgonians, they look a lot like a plant, but they are in fact a colony of many, many animals. If you can make out those little white fuzzies that you see right there on the Gorgonian, each little white fuzz is actually an animal called a polyp, which is connected to the rest of the colony via that red stalk there. And that red stalk is going to be able to feed the rest of these the rest of the colony, the different bits of food that each polyp is grabbing. The polyps are grabbing maybe bacteria and algae out of the water, dissolved organic matter, or DOM as it's known, so waste products, and maybe even a crustacean or two, as they are holding their polyps out there into the current. Then they digest them at the polyp, and then it spreads out to the rest of the colony. So, got some condensation from my hands there. So zooming out a little bit, this here is a quintessential Southern California scene here with blue-banded gobies on the bottom and these beautiful Gorgonians there hanging out there on the back. And we've got blue-banded gobies kind of everywhere. Once you see one, you see a few more. We've got our star right here. There's another one hanging out there. There are at least two more there beneath the Gorgonian. And these animals, again, are a part of a community of organism that you find a little bit further south here along California. So the community of animals that you find here along the reefs, in the kelp forests, in the different habitats that you have out here diving, they change drastically from up north in the Mendocino coast and Humboldt County up there. Changes drastically from there down through Central California to Monterey Bay. We're kind of the furthest south of the northern animals and the furthest north of many of the southern animals. That changes, of course, every few decades as the ocean warms, and we have different communities of organism that make their way up with warming water temperatures and further north, trying to follow the colder waters there. That is the reason why when you hear about polar species struggling so much with climate change, is they don't have anywhere else to go, whereas southern species will just continue to move with that warmer water. So these blue-banded gobies, again, spotted sometimes here in the Monterey Bay, but definitely much more further south typically. And a really cool thing about these gobies that we should point out is that these gobies can change their sex back and forth, which is very different from other fish species. Many fish out there change their sex over their life. For example, the California sheephead that we have here in the Monterey Bay, it starts off life as a female and then it will change into being a male depending on what the conditions are. So if there's a lot of food, then they'll delay their change into being a male for many years, maybe around 13 years or more. If there's not a lot of food, they'll change much sooner. And so that is what's known as sequential hermaphroditism, meaning that in a sequence, you'll go from being one sex to the other. And for a sheephead, that is called protogynous, meaning that you start off as a female. If you are familiar with the term gynecology, protogynous, similar root there. So that's if you start off as a female first, and then you become a male later on in life. There's also the very famous Nemo, the clownfish. They start off sort of as a null, and when they arrive on an anemone, oh, another yawn right there, look at that. Nice, super cute blue-banded goby yawn there in the morning. We've already done 2 live streams, so maybe getting a little bit tired there of being on camera. That's okay, we'll wrap this up soon. So the Finding Nemo story, of course, when you have a anemone fish, normally they show up on the anemone. If there is no female around, then they will become female and dominate that anemone, and then the rest of the anemone fish that show up will be males. If they arrive and there's already a female, then they will stay or they will become a male and stay there until the female moves on. So in Finding Nemo, when Nemo's dad goes away, or Nemo's mom goes away, Nemo's dad would have literally become Nemo's mom later on in that movie if they were following the true biology there of those fishes. So that is called protandrous hermaphroditism. So you start off as a male. So protandry and then protogyny is those are the 2 different methods. These particular fish here, long-winded way to get to these fish, they can go back and forth. So a male can become a female and it can go back to being a male depending on the conditions out there. And gobies are some of the only fish known to be able to do this switch, where they can go back and forth changing their sex depending on what the community needs there. So a very cool fish from a developmental standpoint, definitely something that interests a lot of folks in their studies, and also just an absolutely beautiful fish to see here on the reef. Now in this display, we've talked about the gorgeous gobies, the beautiful Gorgonians, but there's also a few other animals we might as well point out since we're here. We have here this beautiful rock scallop that is alive and well. You can see those orange lips there. That's the mantle of the scallop. A mantle is a very specific characteristic of mollusks, so snails and octopus, squid, mussels, clams, slugs, you name it, those are all mollusks, and they have a mantle. The mantle usually covers up most of the organs, and those are the lips you see right there. The water's coming in from the left side of those lips and coming out the hole that you see here next to us, and that is a filter feeder hard at work. Another filter feeder eating slightly smaller bits of food is this red sponge completely covering this rock. Red sponges there are going to be filtering very small bits of food out of the water, recycling that to the reef. And you're also potentially going to have sea slugs called nudibranchs on those sponges trying to munch on the sponge. Then down over here, right next to the blue-banded goby, are some beautiful anemone-looking animals called cereanthids. These look a lot like the strawberry anemones that you might find out there in the Monterey Bay, but they're not. They're very different. These cereanthids are more of a coral type of animal. So beautiful, hanging out right there next to the goby. You can see some cereanthid roommates there to the blue-banded goby on its throne. Moving over here, we have an orange puffball sponge, another animal that is going to be filtering out little bits of food. And here we have a sponge growing on top of a rock scallop, and those fleshy lips you see here in front of us, the water's coming in from that left side, going out the right side, and that is again the mantle of this scallop. And probably can't see it, but on the inside there you can sort of make out the filter inside there. Then one last animal we should point out while we're here, if you folks out there enjoy eating spot prawns, there's a spot prawn right there. Absolutely delicious food, but a certainly important member of the benthic community, benthic being the seafloor. And these spot prawns, you have a spot prawn fishery out here in the Monterey Bay. They're tasty for sure. You usually see them on the menu, but hanging out beneath that gorgeous Gorgonian overhead environment there. Now, if I move over here, you can see that's sort of what it looks like in the Channel Islands with that beautiful kelp forest, the Garibaldi, the Gorgonians. You don't see this scene in the Monterey Bay yet, anyway. You have to go down to further south to go see that. And then over here is a bit more of that Southern California influence of the green moray hanging out right here. You don't really see these in the Monterey Bay. These are much further south. We have as well over here those beautiful Gorgonians hanging out. This is very similar to what it would look like out in the Monterey Bay. Here comes our baby giant sea bass. That is certainly something that you would not see diving out here. You'd have to go down further south to go see that. And yeah, so this area that we're kind of standing at here between the kelp holdfast exhibit and this area with the gobies, this is much more a Southern California, adventure for you folks out there. Alrighty, well, we've got 3 blue-banded gobies here in camera. Well, thank you so much for following us here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium here on YouTube. Again, my name's Patrick. Thank you to everyone who watched the replay. Hello to everyone who is here live right now. Thank you so much for being there. I'm going to sign off right now, but thank you so much for joining us on this little walkthrough, taking a look at some of the lesser seen animals. I'm not sure if we've ever done a live stream with these particular organisms before, so welcome to the internet, gorgeous gobies and gorgonians. And otherwise, we will see you again soon at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, everyone. We hope you have a fantastic rest of your day wherever you are around the world. Thanks, everyone.